When I did my little video recently about my favorite tools, I neglected to mention one of my very favorite tools is my SawStop table saw. The first reason I love it is because it is a fine table saw. It's powerful. This is a 240 volt, 3 horsepower saw. And the uh, next reason to love it is for the blade brake technology. And you saw me with my blade brake. I did set it off hitting a screw, which is a danger. That's just how it works. It kind of works if you ever see one of these touch lamps. And this is my impression on how it works from electronics background. I've not consulted the company on this, but if you think about a touch lamp where you touch the base or you touch the housing on the lamp and it'll turn on and off and whatnot, I think that's kind of how this works. Um, when you turn the master switch on, a few things happen. There's a large capacitor in the brake, which charges up over just a few seconds, and also the brake does a kind of a baseline on the blade, so it gets to understand what this blade looks like electrically. So that's very simplistic, my impression of how it works. So when you touch that, the the electronic senses that something electrically has changed in the blade, and it will assume that it's your finger, and then the brake activates. You can't see the control panel, but if I touch that, the red light flashes, just to indicate to me that if I had some wet wood, treated wood is a little troublesome, but often because it's wet. But if I had some wet wood and I wasn't sure if I should run it through the saw, I could touch it to the blade and watch the light. If the light flashes red, then that's definitely a no. But there's in a sequence I can turn off the blade brake uh, system, and then I can run it through just as a normal table saw, but there's no protection. Then the blade is fully dangerous at that time. I call the two modes uh, suicide mode and impunity mode. so uh, so the SawStop, again, it has that great safety technology, and yeah, you got to pay for it. You know, what's this finger worth? Think about that. That's the most useless finger I have. Left hand little finger. It really serves not much of a purpose, but making my gloves not flop around. And as you know, I don't wear gloves very often. So you do have to pay for it. You have to put investment into it. The other thing with this saw is customer service. Um, I've called them twice in the last nearly 13 years. I've had this saw, and I've called them twice, and they've spent all the time I need for them to explain what I need to know. The first time it was just a kind of an operator error, and the guy kindly, showed me and explained to me how this is working and why, I'm not expecting it to work a different way, sort of thing, and it's fine. The last time, it was last winter, so this saw was 12 years old, and I'm sure it was out of warranty by then. But I phoned SawStop because I had a problem with the blade brake for the data blade. The data blade brake is different than the standard blade brake, because this is a 10-inch blade and data blades are generally 8-inch, and it's wider. So anyway, I had a problem with it. It just stopped working. So what you can't see on the control panel is there's a master switch with a key that you can remove, and there's also a on-off paddle, and there's two status lights, green and red status light. There's another key, actually, looks like a house key on the side to turn. It's spring-loaded. So that key on the side has to do with how you turn off the blade brake technology. So anyway, when I phoned the customer service, well, I was going to say that the status lights, the red and green status lights, then will come on, or they'll flash in certain sequences to tell you different things. And then there's a legend on the side of the control box that explains what some of the more common conditions are Well, this condition wasn't listed, so I phoned them up, and the guy spent quite a while with me, having me do different things to diagnose what was going on. He thought he knew what was going on pretty quickly, but he said, "We're going to run some tests here and just confirm. We're going to make sure." Um, and so we worked on that together here for a bit. I just laid my phone on speaker mode on the table and did the things that he asked. I would do a certain thing. The lights would flash a certain number of times in order and whatnot, and I would tell him what was going on. And so he said, "Yeah, okay." After a while, he said, "Okay, I've confirmed." He said, "There's something wrong with that brake, so I'm going to send you a new one." And that was it. It was a 12-year-old saw. And SawStop sent me a brand new Dado brake, no charge, no shipping, no anything. And it was here in, I don't know, 3 or 4 days. So, boy, that's customer service. That is really customer service, in my opinion. I don't know what company would sell you a machine and 12 years later send you a repair part for something that's gone wrong. So I really, really appreciate that. Anyway, I just wanted to point out that I missed my SawStop as far as um, my favorite tools. And also, a viewer pointed out from my last video something he saw, and he said, I have that feature too, and you should point that out. So what it is the on-off paddle on the bottom, and I can't really show you this, it's just under here. So the on-off paddle is right below here. Okay, so I don't think it's a coincidence that when I'm working on the saw and feeding material, you generally feed material just past your body, because if it kicks back, you want it to clear you, you don't want it to hit you. So, and it's my right hand, so it's kind of in line, right? So the paddle is right here. I'm a little bigger than most people, so maybe if it was made just for me, it would be here, but it's here. And so what happens is, well, there's two things about this control box, which is pretty common. It's what's called a magnetic switch. And how that comes into play is, if you're using your saw or whatever other tool and the power goes out in the building, and right away your mind goes to, well, what's going on? Why did the power go out? And you go and solve the problem, or the power comes back on again. And the problem is that if it's a regular on-off switch, when that power comes back on, unexpectedly, your saw is going to start up all by itself. With a magnetic switch, that doesn't happen, because once it loses power, it resets. It goes back to off, and you need to shut it off and turn it back on again in order to make the tool go. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, it's actually a nice big paddle. It's almost as big as my hand. And so I'm going to pull it out here and demonstrate this to you. But the feature that I want to point out, and this is not a SawStop feature. This feature, you can actually even buy switches like this for your machines, is that it's in such a position and whatnot that I can easily touch that with my knee. Like, I can turn it off just like that, and you didn't even see that. So where that comes into play is, if I rip piece of plywood, like I was ripping the other day, rip a piece of plywood and it's long and it wants to fall off the end. I don't want it to fall off, but I need to shut the saw off to be safe. Then I can push it through, hold the workpiece with both hands, and then shut the saw off with my knee, just like that. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you right now. Okay, so that's a really good safety feature, I think. I don't know that I ever shut the saw off with my hand, because I have to stoop a little to reach it. I always just get it with my knee. It gets me just above the knee down here. So that's my SawStop table saw, and that's the safety of the paddle switch. And I'll just mention that different models of SawStop table saws. This table saw is what's called a PCS, a professional cabinet saw, 3 horsepower. Um, I see people calling a table saw a cabinet maker's saw. It's not a cabinet maker's saw. It's a cabinet saw, meaning it's in a cabinet that sits on the floor. It's not a contractor saw that sits on legs, a little box that sits on legs or something like that. It's a cabinet saw. They have a line that's above that. It's bigger, it's more powerful. They have up to 5 horsepower. You can get 3-phase, 5 horsepower if you want. And it's called ICS, Industrial Cabinet Saw. They're next level. It's a bigger top. I can't imagine why I'd need more power. This 3 horsepower is pretty amazing. I've seen you can get this saw in 1 3/4 horsepower, but I've seen on the forums a lot of guys going through the expense to upgrade their saw from 1 3/4 horse to 3 horse. So I imagine the 1 3/4 maybe leaves you wanting a little bit, but this is a 240 volt. So a lot of guys don't have 240 volts in their wood shop. They're working in a little garage they have or something. They've only got 120 volt. And so then you're down to the 1 3/4 horse. Since they sold, this was kind of, other than the fact it's 3 horsepower, the PCS was the cheapest SawStop they had when I bought it. And it was like $4,000 at the time. And they have since made 2 other classes of saws, I'll call. The contractor saw that I've mentioned, it's, steel box, sits on legs. And then they also have a job site saw, they call it. And it's a small, I think it's built with a lot of lightweight materials, plastics too. And it's a saw that you're able to fold up. It's quite innovative with the way it folds up into, it's kind of a little transformer. So you can fold it up, there's a handle, and you can carry it to a job site and set it up there. The contractor saw, I think, would be a pretty substantial unit to take to a job site, but I suppose for a longer job and somewhere it's secure, you don't have to take it away. It would be okay for that. So those are far more affordable, and they still have the blade brake technology. Are they as robust and precise and repeatable and everything as the PCS, the ICS? Probably not. But I just thought I'd let you know that's the model that I have, so because you see it on my channel all the time. And if you thought, hey, I want to get a SawStop, and you go to the website and you look at all the different models, you might be thinking, well, I wonder which one the guy on the YouTube is using. Well, that's it. It's a 3-horse PCS is what I'm using. So that's the SawStop. Thanks for watching.